important panel discussion. This panel discussion is on trends and opportunities, sustainable sourcing strategies for the generation of today and tomorrow. This is going to be an interesting one, and there definitely be a lot of takeaways. So yes, please pay attention. So now it's time for me to invite on stage firstly our moderator for this session. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome on stage Mr. Amol Kulkarni, Vice President, Contracts and Procurement, Think Gas Distribution Private Limited. Welcome, sir. Now let's welcome our speakers. Let's welcome Mr. Veeshwass Kulkarni, General Manager, Purchase, Legrand. Dr. Rajat Chitravanshi, Executive Vice President, Supply Chain Management, Corporate Affairs and Facility Management, Ascent Telecom Infrastructure Private Limited. Now let's welcome Mr. Vikas Kalal, DGM, Procurement, ACC Limited. I request all of you to give a warm round of applause as I welcome all our speakers, our moderator. Please do that. Thank you. Thank you so very much for participating. Now let us all together welcome Mr. Kishor, Kshirsagar, Head Strategic Sourcing, Schindler India Private Limited. Now let's welcome Mr. Vivek Ganatra, General Manager, Procurement, New Energy Initiatives, Reliance New Solar Energy Limited. Now let's welcome Mr. Aseemkumar, Laherikant, Joshi, Group Head, Project and Contract ADM, the Tata Power Company Limited. Now let's welcome Mr. Ashwani Kumar Goyal, Associate Vice President, Materials, the Indian Hotels Company Limited. Welcome, sir. And last but not the least, let us all together welcome Mr. Anilgiri Goswami, Head Procurement, Suiting Business, Raymond Limited. Welcome, sir. And as our speakers have already taken the seat, I would like to give it over to our moderator. Amol, sir, over to you. Let's start.
Thank you. My name is Amol Kulkarni. I am coming from Delhi. You can see that from my attire, though it has no relevance. Last week in Delhi, two things were very prominent in discussion. One thing was the G20 summit. And no, second is not Modi ji. Second was the news which has come is that on an average, people who are staying in Delhi, they are going to have 11 years of less life as compared to other cities. So why this has happened is because of the pollution, air pollution, the quality of air throughout the year Delhi is having. So this aspect, both the news are related to the sustainability of mankind. Firstly, in G20, we have multiple initiatives taken by various countries, the heads of the various countries. They have discussed about biofuels, they have discussed about the sustainability, the corridor from India, Middle East, Europe, this entire corridor. Everything comes back to sustainability. See, today, the sustainability has become a very buzzword. But what we are doing as a procurement heads of various companies towards this sustainability, how we can bring it in our day-to-day life. So that is the aim of discussing on this topic. So I would like to start with the introduction of my panel. I request from left to right, everybody can give their introduction and their aim from this discussion. Then we can formally start this discussion. Please.
So myself, Anilgiri Goswami, I am taking care of suiting business, procurement, outsourcing and export. I am being Raymond since 2008. It's now 15 years I am being with Raymond. Earlier I was with Digjam. So this is my small introduction. Over to Ashwani ji.
Hi. I am Ashwani Goyal. I am coming from Indian Hotel Company. I joined there recently, coming with 2 decades of experience. Looking forward to a fulfilling discussion with that panel.
Yeah, good evening. I am Aseemkumar Joshi. Basically, I belong to Gujarat state, and at present I'm working with Tata Power Company Limited, and I have a diverse experience of 3 decades, covering various industries like pharmaceutical, chemical industry, infrastructure, and at presently for last 12 years I'm working with a power generation company. So this is about me. I would like to have a fruitful discussion basically on various sustainable sourcing aspects. Can have a brainstorming and much more in-depth discussion on the subject. Thanks.
Hello, I am Veeshwass Kulkarni. I am from Legrand. I am having 22 years of experience in procurement, digital transformation, supplier relationship, and overall change management. So in today's topic, we'll be focusing mainly on sustainable ethical practices and impact in future also.
Over.
Good evening. I am Vikas Kalal, responsible for procurement, ACC Limited. I have around 15 years of experience in procurement, supply chain management, contracts management, and I am also looking forward to, because the sustainable sourcing practices is a key element for all the procurement professionals. So I am looking forward to a good and fruitful discussion for the same.
Hi, myself Kishor Kshirsagar. Currently I am heading the strategic sourcing for the elevator business. So I have past experience of 10 years in automotive industry for strategic sourcing and the 12 years in the elevator industry. So I would like to touch on the topics where the industry 5.0, how we can support for the sustainable sourcing. Thank you.
Over to you, Rajat.
Good evening. I am Dr. Rajat Chitravanshi, having more than 3.5 decades of experience in supply chain, and for past 25 years I am working for telecom industries, including Idea Cellular, and currently I am working for Ascent Telecom, which is into telecom infrastructure, handling entire pan-India supply chain and facility management. We are into telecom infra, which is the tower industry, providing the telecom. Thank you very much.
Good evening all, I am Vivek Ganatra. I am from Reliance New Solar Energy Limited. We are developing a solar plant, renewable energy resources plant in Jamnagar, which will be functional from 2024 onwards. Just to add in terms of introduction, the 3 words we generally use in terms of R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. Sustainability is something which is very close to us. Let me just give you an example of it. How many of you think that sustainability word is more prevalent after year 2010 onwards or 2000 onwards? How many of you have been more talking about the sustainability after 2000 year onwards? Sustainability lies in terms of our own way of working, the way India as a country has been working. I'll give you a little example of my childhood memories. We have been using reuse word very frequently. A couple of people like me must have used a t-shirt or a pant of an elder brother, and we would have taken it from our own use. A cycle, bicycle, which is bought for the elder ones, is also used by the younger ones and maybe 2 or 3 other generations of the cousins. So India is not a country which sustainability is not built part of it. We are kind of a country where sustainability is origin. To add one more examples to it, if we talk about the trees, fruits which are given by the trees are not consumed by the trees. The water which flows in the river is not consumed by the river. Similar way, the way we do operate or function our businesses are also is for some other part of the world to be utilized. And the lesser the sources utilized in the processes what we do is something which will open the forum for our discussion. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Vivek, and thank you everybody for the nice introduction. So this is just the introduction, but to start with, we are short of time. Not only for this discussion, but even our topics is that we are discussing about trends and opportunities for sustainable sourcing strategies for the generation of today and tomorrow. So as Vivek said, we were discussing since 2000 or 2010 about sustainable sourcing, but it was for generations of tomorrow. Now it has changed to the generation of today. So my first opening question to Rajat is, see, we are talking about sustainable sourcing, it is a buzzword today, but how does this sustainable sourcing differ from traditional sourcing practices, and what are the environmental impacts of unsustainable sourcing practices? We should understand that first, and then we should decide whether we need to go for sustainable thing or not. So Rajat, over to you.
I think it is very apt question for me as one of the panelists, because as I told that I am having more than 35 years of experience in supply chain. And initially, of course, 50% of my SCM career, I was basically handling the traditional way of procurement. And subsequently, post 2000, we are now switching over to sustainable. So let us first understand to start the discussion that what was traditional and what is sustainable. Basically, the traditional one focuses primarily for the cost of the product, what we are buying, the right pricing of the product of what we are buying. So the only component, the only parameter of procurement in traditional way of sourcing is focusing on the pricing and the quality of the product. On the contrary, in sustainable, it's a long-term association with the suppliers. Though of course the cost and the quality is also one of the parameter, but in sustainable, procurement is a long-term association with the supplier. The other part is basically in traditional way of costing is it include improved transparency, reduced cost, and better quality control. As far as sustainable procurement is concerned, it is getting associated with the supplier, having more confidence of the supplier, and basically the risk management and the long-term sustainability with the supplier. So that is basically the basic difference between traditional and sustainable. Both are having different type of pluses and minuses, but the trend in the industry is that we are now going for the sustainable procurement practices.
So thank you, Rajat. Just to elaborate on what you said, being the senior most panelist on our panel, you have seen the generations, how the procurement had changed over the year. But seeing the clear difference between those two practices, what do you think is the second part of my question, that what are the environmental impacts of that unsustainable sourcing?
The environmental impact of unsustainable sourcing practices are basically issues like environmental degradation, deforestation, greenhouse gas emissions, pollution, and water security.
Thank you, thank you. You want to add something?
So mainly on a sustainable part, as you mentioned, supplier relationship is one of the aspect on long lasting, but at the same time, now procurement has evolved towards looking at environmental aspects also. So whatever you are procuring, whether it is service or whether it is product, how it is impacting on overall environment. At the same time, from where it is sourced. So what effect it has from that source, whether it is supplier or supplier supply chain, and at the same time, when that product is introduced to the market, how that product is going to impact on overall environment. That is one of the focus area, and from there ESG is also coming into picture when we talk about sustainable sourcing or sustainable procurement. That is what I...
Very, very well thought, Veeshwass. This brings me to my second question, which I would like to ask to Vikas. How does sustainable sourcing contribute to reducing carbon emissions and combating climate change? And what have been your challenges in implementing that in your organization?
Yeah. So adding to what Rajat said, so expanding the supply chains are also leaving the carbon footprint. If you see a product which you buy from a local hypermart has been manufactured somewhere else in some part of the world. So that transportation also adds to the carbon footprint. So that is how the carbon emissions are increasing when we are talking about the supply chain. So supply chain is also a major contributor to the carbon emissions. Now for the industries, how I would like to categorize is for the industries there can be three categories. One is the industry's direct emissions. So the emissions coming, carbon emissions or emissions coming from the direct processes of the organization, manufacturing processes which are emitting. Second one is the purchase what you do of energy. From that the emissions which are coming, electricity you are purchasing fuel. So those kind of emissions which are also adding. And the third would be the supply chain related emissions. So whatever the goods and services which a company buys, that also leads to the carbon emissions if it is not following the ESG framework. So these two, the above two can be very well controlled because those are in the direct control. Sustainable sourcing related emissions has an indirect impact. So these need to be controlled very well with the sustainable sourcing practices what we have. So that is how we control them.
Thank you. Very well said, Vikas. As you mentioned about reduction of carbon emissions, so various measures for that. And Kishor in his introduction mentioned about Industry 5.0. So clubbing that together, I would like to extend this question and ask Kishor that what is the role of Industry 5.0 in transition from traditional sourcing to sustainable sourcing, and how category management is evolved as a procurement tool for the future when it comes to sustainable sourcing.
Thank you, Amol. So I would like to give answer in the two parts. The first part is the digital 5.0. So everybody is knowing the industry 5.0, the new concept which is the interface between the collaborative of human and the machine. So till the 4.0, we are using artificial intelligence, data collaboration, and the softwares which is more on the digitization part. But the industry 5.0 is more focusing on the human centric, which is the collaboration between the machine and human interface used to have more solution or productive which is more sustainable. The industry 5.0 also help us to get the better quality of product, better services. So you know everybody is using lift. In the lift, what is the most important criteria is it should be 100% uptime running. So if you see the elevator which is breakdown, then it will give the calls to the maintenance guy, security, then security guy will go to the person, manager, then manager call to the elevator industry technician. But if you see in the industry 4.0, if you have an application where we can see the 100% online tracking of the running of the each elevators, which will give the benefits to know track the 100% uptime of the each and every elevator. And in case of any emergency or in case of breakdown, the technician will get the notice automatically on his application, on his tab or mobile. So this is the industry 5.0, where the technology or digitization will help with the human interaction to provide the better services and for better quality of the life. This is the first part of the industry 5.0. And second, for the spend analysis, everybody is doing. But the traditional way of strategic sourcing, what the people are doing, it is just selecting the correct supplier or which is having lower prices, which is selected normally. But in the category management, what it has to be end-to-end process. The category of each process individually will be discussed in detail, and that will be the considered as a like a, if you procure any kind of part, then it will be the right from its incoming freight to its packaging, its after product life service warranty. Till that we have to eliminate, every cost has to be verified, and it should be as a one of the business unit. If you club all the vendor freights, so then it will be the one category of the product. So category management is evolve is the more process oriented tool rather than which is working only the static sourcing in the single horizon, which is like a silo working. They are not interacting with the end customer or the legal or finance. So the category manager more focus on the whole supply chain end-to-end processes and maximize the profit or identify the cost saving opportunity on each process elements. And also it will help us to buy or take the decision at the right time and real time databases. So Industry 5.0 is also help to create a sourcing people to decision on real time databases. If you know some people are knowing maybe digital twin, IoT applications. These are the few the Industry 5.0 trends which is working with on more collaboration with the digitization plus human effort will give the better service or better product to the customer. So this is the
Thank you, Kishor. Very well said. In fact, both the aspects of your answer. One, role of Industry 5.0, and secondly, the use of category management. I recollect here from the category management tool, usage of it, how it can be beneficial to sustainable development of the overall organization, country, and at large to the planet. I am from a natural gas distribution industry, and what we normally do is wherever there is no pipeline of the gas, we transport that gas through cylinder cascades. So there are multiple types of cascades available, type 1, type 3, type 4, type 2 is banned in India. But these three types are available. Type 1 has inherent limitations of capacity. Type 3 and type 4 both have similar capacity, but type 4 is cheaper, has maybe 10 to 15% cheaper as compared to type 3. But there is a small difference in the permeability of the cylinders. So we calculated that what is the difference between type 3 and type 4. So eventually for the life of that one particular cascade, it came out that this gas, additional gas which will be permeated through or which will escape through that gas cylinder would be 15 lakh kilos. And natural gas, it's a green fuel, but if it is used or if it is burnt, then it is green fuel. But if it escapes in the atmosphere, then it is harmful because it depletes the ozone layer. This is the greenhouse effect, what we see. So with this category management techniques, this detailed analysis was done, and this was proved that this even if we buy a product which is 15% costlier, in long run it is economically beneficial to us, plus it is a more sustainable product. So this is a live example from my industry. So after this, I would like to go to the customer of Kishor, Ashwani, because he is from escalator industry and their biggest customer is hotels. So Ashwani, what challenges do supply chains face in adopting sustainable sourcing practices in your industry? Okay. Hello. Can you hear me? I can pass it on the mic.
Mic.
Yeah.
Okay, coming to the question, basically what is the challenges we have in sustainable supply chain? The first and the foremost challenge is the availability. It's very easy and a buzzword to say we need this sustainable, that sustainable. First challenge is availability. Second biggest challenge is complexity of the supply chain. We can say this product is sustainable, but what is the background? Nobody knows, because the supply chain is generally very complex. We can say this particular product is sustainable, but how it is made, who has contributed, how much carbon footprint it has, nobody knows. The third is the traceability. It's very easy to talk buzzword sustainability, ESG, this, that, blah, blah, but it's difficult to trace the product and really work upon it. And next is the change management. There are many stakeholders when we work in any industry, right? The change management is more important. I will give you example for each one of them. And last, I have kept the cost. Cost is very, very important, as we all are procurement people. The cost should be first, but I have kept it the last. Coming to the industry, as Amol has asked, if we talk about our industry, let's first talk about maybe the guest amenities we have in the rooms. Everything used to be plastic. Maybe if you know 5 years back, everything used to be plastic, whether it is a comb or a brush or a shoe shiner or whatever. Now everything we are turning them into bamboo. But is it acceptable on day one? The answer is no. There are guest complaints. Especially ladies will say your comb is of no use. Because the bamboo comb cannot comb the hair what the plastic used to do. That is how the change management comes into picture. People have to accept that if with the change we are going for sustainability, there will be certain challenges. Two, the complexity. People who are used to a particular thing for many years, donkeys, they are using a particular type of amenities, and suddenly you are telling them to do it, it is difficult. The water bottles which are there on the table currently, they are plastic bottles. Maybe 2 years down the line, you will not find these bottles. You will have the glass bottles filled in-house plant. We are working upon it as a company that every hotel will have a water plant in-house. The water bottles will be filled and will be served to the guest. Coming to the change management, another aspect is we have shifted from the plastic garbage bags to compostable garbage bags. Housekeeping has a tendency to fill, but with cornstarch bags or the compostable bags, the strength is not that much. It will tear off. That is again a management, change management we have to manage. Having said that, coming to cost now, we have taken that hit as a company because somebody has just mentioned by 2030 we have to be carbon neutral. The aim for Indian hotels is also to be carbon neutral by 2030. That is what we are working upon. Over to you, Amol.
Thank you, Ashwani. See, sustainable sourcing without a sustainable supplier is a daydream. You cannot achieve that. In fact, in last panel discussions, there were discussion about supplier collaborations and how we can increase that. So, this two panels had a similar discussion. Maybe their aim was different, but without involvement of supplier, sustainable sourcing is a difficult thing. To ensure sustainability of sustainable sourcing, what challenges are faced in different industries? So that also we should discuss in this panel, and I would like Aseem, if you can throw some light on this.
Yeah. Thank you, Amol. This is definitely a very good point of discussion. For any organization to be, you can say, sustainable in a long run, they anyhow must have sustainable suppliers and vendors, or you can say business partners. Business partners without being sustainable, there is no chance of any organization themselves can be sustainable for a long run. So, as Amol just requested to define various, you can say, parameters, because for any supplier, even in a traditional, you can say, a procurement, we all must be assessing a vendor or a supplier. So maybe you can, we are terminology we are using, that is a supplier performance or vendor rating, or it may differ from organization to organization. But crux of the discussion is there are certain parameters by which we would be assessing our existing supplier base. And in a traditional procurement, these are the parameters we all, because we all are procurement professionals gathered over here, must be knowing, like a timely delivery is one of the parameters. Another parameter is the quality of, you can say, material which is being supplied, whether it was as per the expectation. And third must be definitely a cost and price aspect. So in a traditional procurement, these are the three parameters which we normally assess for any, you can say, procurement. Whereas in a sustainable procurement and to organization to go for a procurement on a sustainable aspect, all the vendors also must be assessed on a sustainable aspects. So as our panel colleagues have discussed, there are a lot many various parameters like Veeshwass has specifically suggested. ESG, that is the most important aspect, that is environmental consideration, then you can say social consideration as well as governance considerations. So ESG is these days of a very prime importance for an organization, and these are the parameters definitely we all must consider even on our supplier base, or you can say business partners. So this is not the only that we as a manufacturer or a business owners only would be, you can say, fulfilling ESG parameters. Our suppliers also must be ESG parameters fulfilled. So just briefly summarizing, what are the various environmental, you can say, parameters. Definitely companies must take some initiative, I mean supplier base, to protect the environment. And for environment protection, we can, I mean, assess whether they have an energy conservation plan, whether they have a, you can say, a water conservation plan, or even waste utilization plans also. So even disposal management, even suppliers have, whether they have got some government accreditation, or you can say whether they have got some awards or something like that. So this can also one of the parameter considering environmental aspects. So apart from a traditional, you can say, a vendor assessment, environmental aspects consideration, this is also one of the aspect for a sustainable procurement. Another is you can say a social parameters. In fact, how the companies are taking various initiative to improve the, you can say, standard of living of you can say their own employees, not only their own employees, but related stakeholders like you can say community and society as a whole. So companies must have definitely must have considered and taken initiatives like EHS initiatives, employee health and safety initiatives, and they must have you can say certifications like OSAS or ISO 14001 or so. And some of the examples, in fact, I would like to give what can be the, you can say, social parameters can be considered. One of the parameters can be affirmative actions drive. In fact, as even government is also in our country is promoting various minority communities for their upliftment, to give some business opportunities and some other facilitation. So companies nowadays definitely they are also considering affirmative actions drive also. Even there are some initiatives for employees upliftment and improving the standard of living of the employees. Various CSR initiatives, corporate social responsibilities, improving the livelihood and literacy standard of community as a whole. So this social governance parameter is also you can say a kind of important criteria while assessing a performance of any sustainable vendor. Another as a governance criteria, definitely business must be done in a ethical and you can say transparent manner. This can also be one of the parameters we must assess for a sustainable vendor, whether they have taken some formal certifications like ISO 9001 or so, and they have made some framework ensuring a business they are doing that are in an ethical manner. And we can also assess their processes, whether they have a digitalization processes also in order to have a transparency. Even we can assess whether they have got some national accreditation or some you can say government awards or any kind of international accreditations or awards. So apart from routine and traditional parameters, these are the you can say parameters we all must consider. So in short, it is you can say ESG parameters. Definitely we must look into.
Very
So that's all, Amol. I think
very well, very deeply and broadly covering all the aspects of how we should be measuring the performance of suppliers, especially when it comes to sustainability. Thanks, Aseem, for that. But see, two aspects here. First thing is sustainability. If a company is looking for a sustainable supplier, company itself should have sustainability as one of its values. Because if you as a company are not having that sustainability in your DNA, you cannot expect that from your supplier. And even if you expect, it will be just a false expectation, you won't get it actually. So second aspect is whatever measures you are putting it for the performance measures, those are very true when you are onboarding the suppliers also. So when we are trying for onboarding, maybe whenever we are exploring the opportunities of economic benefits from the developing countries, we try to source the products. And these ethical considerations are also associated when it comes to sustainable sourcing. Even for today, tomorrow, all the sourcing, this has to be viewed in light of ethical sourcing as well. So coming back to Veeshwass, how do you see this when we are trying to get economic benefits from newer suppliers which are from developing countries, and in light of sustainable sourcing, what are your ethical considerations for that?
So Amol, we used probably three major words in the question you used. So one is sustainable sourcing, other is ethical consideration, and one is developing countries, or probably low cost sourcing countries as people are looking at. So maybe developing countries, I'll not go into definition because that is very clear and all of us know when we talk about developing countries. Sustainable sourcing, I think we started our discussion about sustainable sourcing, what are different parameters, even we talked about measuring performance of supplier, and one of the important point which you mentioned is the company or organization should have a clear vision or thought process about the policy. When they talk about sustainability, what does it mean for them as a process, what they are expecting from their stakeholders in the supply chain. Once it is defined, then it is easy to benchmark, it is easy to assess, and even look at the roadmap where we are today, and when we are talking about 2030, 2035, how we'll be moving year on year, how is our progress. Now coming back to ethical considerations, so when we talk about sustainable, mainly it is focusing on environmental aspects more, and when it talks about ethical consideration, it is about human element. So when we look at human element and ethics, so for developing countries, as per the question, so on an ethical part of human aspect, it talks about human rights, it talks about basic wages, minimum wages, or wages to be paid to the worker as per the law, which ensures that from wherever you are sourcing the product, how it is impacting on the community or the human aspect who is producing that. So that aspects is considered when we look at ethical consideration. Apart from this, it talks about one of the point which he has mentioned, like health and safety of the workers, what facilities are being provided, how that particular supplier or the organization is concerned about the community, whether there are certain measures taken or not, whether the working environment is safe and ergonomically right. Even it takes care of basic codes, which is again defined by ILO, which talks about these aspects in detail, covering human rights as well as these aspects. Even it talks about diversity, equality and inclusion part. So this is again a broader part, but when we look at human aspect, these are the more considerations when we look for sourcing. Now looking at technology part, even in developing countries, we are outsourcing back office works, which is more related to the customer data or the information. So it is important to assess the supplier base, how that part is taken care, how that data is maintained with the integrity and there is no leakage of that data. At the same time, IP protection related parts. So these are the aspects when we look at sourcing from a developing countries.
Very well. Very well, Veeshwass. And you have rightly brought in point, very valid point, which is very relevant today, is about the data privacy. Very well. So we have seen about, we have been discussing it since last 2-3 questions about the supplier side of it. So how can consumers make informed choice to support sustainable sourcing to derive a greater value from it? I would like Anil to take this question.
Thank you, Amol. So we have been discussing, I think it is the second last question, about the suppliers and buyers and all these things. Now we have to discuss about the customer front of view. The consumer have always been a driving force behind the sustainability initiative. Any initiative. You must be have seen the recent launch of iPhone 15. Anybody seen this launch and what the product is giving? Product is giving 75% aluminum recycled. So this is the how the customer and the manufacturer both are working on the sustainability. Like I am from the Raymond and from the lifestyle. Everybody is wearing the suits, right? Have you heard this suit is made out of wool, polyester and viscose, right? And this polyester is not biodegradable by 800 years. If you put polyester shirt in the earth, it will be biodegradable by 800 years. So now consumer has to be very aware about the sustainability. Many product giving the traceability as well. If you buy any product and there is a QR code, if you scan that QR code, it directly goes to the where the product is manufactured and how it is manufactured. Similarly, if you buy our suits, not in India but in European countries, we are exporting with the ZQ QR code. You can see the where this wool is sourced from Australia and with which part with the which animal. So this type of traceability now customer is getting. So in the past, consumer were largely unaware about this sustainability, but now all the consumers, the young generation, is more focused on the sustainability. Any product they are buying, they first seen what carbon they have used, what is the carbon footprint that the company is using. The customer is now well aware about the sustainability. So Amol, this is how the customers are aware about the sustainability.
Thank you, Anil.
Yes.
Very
Because
well
short of time is only 9 minutes left.
Yeah. So I'll move to the last question quickly. So having worked in the renewable sector, this question is to Vivek. Which this sector itself contributes towards the sustainability of the planet. So what sustainable sourcing strategies you have adopted for procurement in your organization and what has been its impact?
Thank you, Amol. And coming from a renewable background, and we as a company, Reliance, certainly people would like to know about that how we operate as a company. I would first start with one quote example. As I told you that being a child also, mother teaches us whenever we wake up in the morning to touch upon the ground and bow down and say, Mother Earth, I'm sorry, I'm going to hurt you today, and please forgive me for this my action. So that is how the Indian culture, and that is what the origin we are coming from it. So taking care of nature is not something which is different from the way generally we should be operating it. Coming to the industrial part of it now, Reliance as a company, this has been well thought, well ahead of time. Being the largest Indian conglomerate, our chairman has put up a vision, being at carbon neutral by 2035. So first thing, it starts with a vision that yes, I want to be a sustainable company. Two things which we have to focus. Why we have to be sustainable? First is for our own benefit. If we want to be in the business for continuing years, this is also must need. There are ESG topics which people have touched upon. ESG scores help us in terms of benchmarking, in terms of the peer comparisons, in terms of our risk rating, in terms of the sources which we are utilizing, in terms of the investor relations. So these are direct measurements which is possible. Once we are able to measure ESG scores, we can further lay down the action points around it. Now coming part of the sourcing part of it, starting from supplier part which generally people have talked about, I will take it to a larger scale, because as a Reliance we believe that taking it to a larger scale is something which people will be benefiting about. Renewable energy, when we talk about is, we are going to set up the largest plant in terms of gigawatt capacity, where currently people are operating in couple of megawatts to a few of gigawatts. By 2030 as an organization, we have aimed in terms of putting 100 gigawatt of renewable energy resources. In terms of taking it to a larger vision, to the target which is set up, now coming to the action plan towards it, what are the actions which we put up and how an organization also can learn from about it. In terms of the solar modules, somebody might be knowing about what is the efficiency level generally a solar module is operating or available. Any idea? Close to 23% of the efficiency. If we are able to increase that efficiency level from the same module, means that with the same resources we are generating or producing more number of outputs. So that is utilizing the same resource for a better efficiency portions. Reliance has invested in company called REC, which is 25 years into the business, which are into HJT technology for having a better efficient solar modules available for our countries. When we talk about the scales, it is kind of a 20 gigawatt of module manufacturing in India in another 2 to 3 years of span. Making this available, now whole country as a whole will have better efficient modules for utilizations. It is for own consumption, it is for the people of India. So that is what we talk about the energy efficiency, bringing it from the same resources, the more output. Taking back to another part is, we should also consume lesser resources. Let me give you an example. Anyone in the room who has the idea in terms of life of solar panels which are generally given currently?
Yeah, 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah.
So that life, Reliance is aiming, we are aiming to make it to a 50 years. That is the aim which as an organization which we have put up. So now it's a double of life which we are talking about with the same resources, because numbers are easy for us to understand. In India, if you say cost is 5% lesser, everybody understands. So if you say that same material is going to give you the double of the life, it's very easy. Now assume that for a country like us, 140 crore of people are having the access of resources which can last for 50 years of span, the same products, complete game changer. Now for this part, we invest in technology. So it is when we talk about the supplier collaboration, so we generally talk about our company's collaboration and taking it to a supplier part. So we invest heavily in terms of research and development, our engagement with the suppliers, our engagement with the partnering companies. We will give you one example of it. To achieve this part of it, there is a percosites tandem cell technology through which we are also aiming to achieve this life of 50 years also in terms of efficiency level from 23% to making it to 26 and subsequently 28% of the part. So this is something when we talk about the engagement, this is what we are going to do as a company. Sustainability is not different. It is part of the way we operate. That should be the part of the way management thinks to it. It comes to a top leadership. It comes to our execution people. It comes to the complete ecosystems who are as a part of the employee base which we are having it. Once this comes, complete mind frame is set up. People understand it.
Very well.
To give you one example on it, our employee base, along with the employee training programs, our organization has given the employee access for all the training programs to their family members as well. It's the first company to achieve training programs for their families. We talk about the biodiversity part of it, which is when we talk about the ESG part of it. Let me give you one example. The water bottle example today, since morning to the evening hours, people have been giving it. We are recycling 2 billion bottles a year. 45% of the water, Reliance as the largest company, is getting recycled. So that are the numbers which we are speaking. In terms of the environment part of it, we have been amongst the top leaders in terms of implementing environment governance. To touch upon the economic systems in and around, we as a company are ensuring that the health of people are in and around are directly getting addressed. You talk
So
about
very well,
any programs
Vivek, sorry to interrupt you here because of short of time. If you have to leave the audience with one thought, quickly I'll be asking this question to everybody. So if you have to leave the audience with one thought, what that would be, quickly in 10 seconds.
mindset.
Very well. Rajat? Kishor?
It should be not only the you, your supplier also should be come along with you as a partner.
Very well. Vikas?
Sustainable sourcing is the key, as we have seen, and we should take each and every effort to make our climate better and leave a legacy for our upcoming generations.
Very well. Veeshwass?
Clear vision and roadmap.
Aseem?
Yeah, along with ourselves, our supplier must also be sustainable and must be fulfilling ESG parameters.
Ashwani?
Don't do a lip service, please.
Anil?
It's awareness.
Very well. Just to summarize quickly on this, I will not take much of time. We are left with 1 minute. I'll try to finish it within 1 minute. So we talked about how we can better collaborate with the suppliers to achieve the sustainability. What are the measures we can take to reduce the carbon emission, the role of Industry 5.0. This is a newer concept which I have also learned from Kishor. The challenges which we are facing in adopting sustainability, and also the change management, how it can be critical. Ashwani talked about that. Supplier performance management, Aseem elaborated it a lot, and this would definitely be beneficial when it comes to implementation. The important aspect which cannot be ignored at any point of time is ethical considerations and sustainability, which we are covered by Veeshwass. And very importantly, contractor side of the sustainability or the consumer side of the sustainability, which was very well covered by Anil. And Vivek, again giving by live examples from Reliance, he has covered from how it has taken the journey from vision to the implementation. So this all topic we have discussed about the trends and opportunities what we have for sustainable sourcing strategies for the generations of today and tomorrow. Just to leave you with the thought which I just read today from the book Energize Your Mind from Gaur Gopal Das. One sentence which was very pertinent about the topic is repentance is a passive rectification and rectification is active repentance. So with this thought, I would like to leave the audience with. If you have any questions or we don't have question answer.
You can take, yes, of course, I'm sure this was such an, interactive and insightful discussion. I'm sure all of them must be having a lot of questions, but we don't have time. So you can take the questions outside. So after that, I'm sure The speakers will be outside in the lobby, so you can catch hold of them and ask whatever questions you can. Okay. So in-person discussion is a very different experience, so go for that. Why not, right? Okay. On that note, I would like to thank our moderator for conducting such a power-packed panel discussion, and we really thoroughly enjoyed every bit of it. And I can clearly see that not just our industry, every industry as a whole, all across the globe, is going through certain challenges, going through a big change, a big shift in a way. But here I could clearly see our leaders of our industry, the professionals of our industry, the way they address it and the way they share the solutions is commendable. So one more time, let us all together give a big round of applause to all the leaders present here from our industry. Thank you so very much. And now I'd like to request our moderator, Aditya sir, to please come and present the token of thanks to all our speakers here. So can we have the token of thanks on stage? I request one by one all our speakers to come forward and receive the memento. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. All right, I request Mr. Anil to kindly present the token of thanks to our moderator, Mr. Amol. Thank you, Mr. Amol, once again for this interesting panel discussion. And on that note, we are done with this one. Thank you all the speakers. And